This is tHE once again, the former spokesperson for the American Cultural Memory and/or Cultural Tradition Complaint Department. I think I said that backwards. Cultural Tradition and/or Cultural Memory Complaint Department. Anyway, one way or the other. And my current role, I also occupy the position of head and/or chief and/or director of the Stochastic Intelligence Agency. Yes, and I'm coming to you live today in black and white. And yes, the reason why I am in black and white is because I am here interviewing. Yes, indeed, I have an interview with Karl Marx. Yes, the famous Karl Marx. Mr. Marx, may I call you Mr. Marx, or would you prefer to be called Karl?
You can call me Mr. Marx, or you could call me Karl. It's fine either way.
Okay, Mr. Marx, then welcome to our interview. And the reason why I'm in black and white today, as I was saying, is because Mr. Karl Marx was here, and this photograph, or was it a photograph or a daguerreotype? I'm not sure. But in any case, it was taken before the invention of color photography, and I didn't want to be in color. Well, poor Mr. Marx was in black and white, and so I toned down the saturation on my image today.
Your turkey, that was very considerate of you. I appreciate the fairness that you show in your interviews, and I appreciate the fact that you are so interested in the historical memory, and that you invited me on the show, and I know this is rare in the United States to be accepted as a communist, as part of the history of America, and I'm sure you're aware of that. And so we'll perhaps discuss some of this today.
Your name is Mark. That was what I was hoping for too. And we're going to start with this the statement, and you can go ahead and respond any way you want. Recently posted by our fascist president, current fascist president here in the United States of America, Mr. Donald J. Trump, to whom we refer to as the Emperor occasionally. And here's the quote that he posted.
The communists are finally making their move. I've been waiting and preparing for this for a long time. It's easy to be a communist. All you have to do is say, I'll give you everything. But that means you're taking it away from others that have earned it. Over thousands of years, that ideology has not worked once. The game is on. Enjoy watching. President Donald J. Trump.
No, that's not really what Donald J. sounds like. I'm not sure why I used that voice, but I did, and no point go back to it now. I'll go ahead and scroll down, and you can see that's a version of what Emperor J. posted on True Social, and I wonder if you care to respond to any of it, or many of it, and then we'll come back and discuss some of your criticisms of the post.
Yeah, well, what I was saying was, the following is that it has never in the history of the United States of America been easy to be a communist. As you know, there was something called the Red Scare, and this more or less, began in the 40s and continued and escalated into the 50s. We know, of course, of the Senator Joseph McCarthy, and his protege there was the young lawyer, the young savagely capitalistic lawyer. His name was Roy Cohn, and this Cohn was as I understand, was the mentor for Donald J. So you have basically Donald J. is repeating the ideology and the witch hunts of this crazy anti-socialist, anti-egalitarian, anti-democratic senator by this name, and that was the McCarthy era, well known, and people were demonized. They lost their jobs. It was never easy. It was easy to point fingers at them, and it was easy to force them out of their jobs, and it was always hard. It was always hard to it was the communists and the socialists in the United States that reinforced the rights of the unions and the workers, and it is because of us that you have a 40-hour work week. It is because of us that you have an 8-hour work day. It is because of us that you have child labor laws that protect the children, and you have health laws that the manufacturers can't just let you lose your arms and your legs and then go uncompensated for these things. These safety protections and all of this is and it was never easy. We had to struggle. We had to struggle to accomplish all of these things, and so it was never easy to be a communist in the United States. That would be my first observation on this. Is simply false, and
it's just false, right? And as I said before, misinformation is currently the common currency in America today, Mr. Marx, and so we're seeing the fabrication of lies about what communism is, what it stands for, how it has positively influenced the labor movement in the United States, how the production, right, of workers' rights is in large part due to ideologies of fairness, equality, diversity, etc., that are ideals, right, that are associated with your philosophy and the philosophy of others, and that often when the far right, and this is something that I'm sure you're aware of, when the far right uses the word communist and they point to someone like a Mao or Stalin, right, they're really really pointing to the hazards of authoritarianism, and they're conflating it with the fact that the ideology under that particular authoritarian government, called itself communist.
Yeah, right. And ideally, in a communist society, you don't have the cult of personality, like the Stalins or the Chairman Mao's or the Donald J's or any of that. You can have a socialist democracy without a authoritarian leader or some kind of cult figure. It's easy to do, and this was never our ideal. This was never our ideal to have individuals, such as these people that want to put their picture in every home, put their picture on every building in their country, put their name on every monument. The cult of personality is not inherent, which is perhaps inherently fascist, but not inherently socialist, and it is an institution of authoritarianism. Sometimes it is difficult to pronounce the English versions of my German words, but these kinds of authoritarianisms, like these are what are at least ancient, beginning in any leader that you could name, right, from the ancient world that was an imperialist, and that ruled, with the iron fist. You can refer to that as proto-authoritarianism, right? Proto-authoritarianism.
Okay, so this is a good point. So did you notice that he says, okay, after he says it's easy to be a communist, right? Which I think you dispelled, that it's easy to be a communist in the United States or anywhere else, right?
Yeah, no, it's the same in Europe. We always had to struggle. We all had to struggle for the rights of the people and fairness, equality, to end slavery. We're always part of abolition and the rights for women and...
Yeah. Okay, hold on. I don't want to give you a get ahead of yourself there, but Don J says over thousands of years, that ideology. So, you invented the word ideology, basically, didn't you, Miss Marx?
Yeah, well, yeah, it maybe had been hinted at in the works of Hegel, but I used ideology, and the way I used ideology when I was writing on the history and economy of Europe and capitalism is not quite the way that the word ideology is used today.
Can you explain that? Can you explain the way that you used ideology when you first... Okay, so he says that this ideology exists over thousands of years. So, like, are you like... Mr. Marx, are you like a caveman? Because I noticed you got like a really big beard there, and no offense, but you're really hairy and a little primitive looking, from the point of view of maybe urban, I don't know, hipster, today. Are you like thousands of years old and you invented this ideology like thousands of years old back in the caveman days?
No, I'm not thousands of years old, and all of my writing, all of the writing that I did, I wrote in the 19th century, thus the 1800s. So I'm not that old. I'm not thousands of years old, and through communism, it perhaps preceded my writing and my existence, and certainly preceded the invention of the word ideology, but did not exist for thousands of years.
Okay, let's start there. Let's go back to the ideology. I just want to clear up that you're not thousands of years old.
No, I'm not thousands of years old. Okay, so this is how I used ideology. Okay, for example, this is the way I used it, and then I will explain very briefly the way I think that individuals use it today. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, this is the way I used it. I said that ideology was this. When the means of production, when the means of production and the means of production and the form of the economy is in fact what determines the shapes and forms of culture and belief systems. That is the following. So think of it this way. In the early part, correct? In the early part of the origins of America in the United States, even before the Declaration of Independence, you had the institution of slavery. This is an economic institution. The institution of slavery is an economic institution. It is a means of production and distribution. It is a symptom of capitalism. It was a symptom of capitalism at that time, although slavery existed prior to capitalism. But slavery cannot exist prior to money and the use and exchange of money. But I don't need to get into all that. Okay, I'm just using this as an example. Then you have a cultural manifestation. In this particular manifestation is a belief system and a set of ideas. You could say that it is a pattern for understanding the world, and this pattern that I'm referring to, we call it racism. This idea that the color of a person's skin, has something to do that it is in fact, this is another word that we want to use here, reification. So the idea that race, which doesn't exist, right, but there are hierarchies of human beings, and that what allows individuals, right, to dominate and discriminate and oppress and own other human beings is that they are somehow, by the very nature of who they are, less than the other human beings. And this idea is not something that emerges prior to the economic reality of slavery, but as a justification for slavery. In other words, the means of production, right, they are the cause, and the consequence is racism. It is not that racism, and at least in this idea that there are races, right? People may not have liked other people, but the idea that there is a white race and a black race and a green race and red race, or whatever they want to say. Okay, this is a fabrication of the imagination, and it grows out of the economic relationships. This is but it is perceived of through reification of the psychology of racism. It is perceived as a fact, a condition, right? And it is the reversal, right? A reversal in the understanding. The understanding says, the understanding of the slave-owning races says this: we have these slaves because we understand they are inferior to us. But that is the reverse of what happened in the history of the idea. The idea was created after the economic institution, you see? So the belief is that it is the difference between these races, which of course there is no difference, that allows slavery. But the truth is the opposite. So when I used the word ideology, I was specifically referring to the reversal of the cause and consequence in systems of the means and mode of production and the ideology and the cultural manifestations of such means and production.
Okay, wow. So, well, as far as I can follow you there, that is a little different than the way that people use it today. Today they more or less just use it to mean a set of beliefs.
Yeah, I think that is correct. They use it to mean a set of beliefs, and underneath the way that the alt-right or the right or the fascists or the Nazis or all of those types of folks use it is the implication that all things are created equal, right? So you could say the moon is made of green cheese, or you could have a scientific explanation of the moon, and well, you have your opinion and I have mine, right? But the truth is that of course the moon is not made of green cheese, and that one opinion is not as valuable as the other, right? Okay, so the problem with saying ideology is this, that the way that it is used today, it captures nothing of what my use of the word ideology captured, where you have a historical understanding within the very conceptual organization of the way that you utilize the term in order to, they have this guy now, his name is, well, I think he passed away, but it's a French guy, Jacques Derrida. He used the word deconstruct. Well, it's not exactly what I was doing, but you can take apart, right? You can take apart history and you can show how it works. And that's the way that I use this word. And that's not how it's used today. It's more used in this the moon is made of green cheese sort of way. You can have your opinion. I think the moon is made of berry jam. You think the moon is made of green cheese. It doesn't really matter. You see this in like the alternative truths, right? Or this is my truth. This is your truth. This, of course, only liars want there to be more than one truth. And the way that you can tell who's telling the truth is you look at the history. I'm an economic philosopher, but I am a historical philosopher of history, and I always have been. And the way that I use words, captures that idea.
Okay, wow, that's really some heavy stuff there, and thank you for clarifying that. Okay, so you more or less admit that you kind of invented the word ideology, but the way that you used it was, according to you, kind of more complex and historical, and can I use the word dialectical?
Yeah, I think there's that in there because part of the dialectic, is the push and the pull, and that all goes back to ancient Greece, and you have the thesis and the antithesis and the synthesis and stuff like this, and this is what Hegel was known for and everything, but and in my historical materialist version of it, there is a consequence, right, of the incompatibility of a system of beliefs and the economic system which they support. So, for example, when you have a system of beliefs that tells you that you're a democracy and yet you have slaves, then this is an incompatibility that will have to be subject to the forces of the drive of historical materialism, you understand? And that ultimately the consequences will be, liberation. Now, of course, there are, those moments in which, we return to states of oppression, etc., etc. But the will to freedom is stronger than the will to oppression, and what you were saying about the word ideology, I think, yes, that is in there because it shows the truth. And this is the way that we want to use words that show the truth and not hide it and obfuscate it and bury it behind mountains and mountains of lies.
Yeah, that was very well stated, and I think that I understood most of what you said there, which was actually pretty good because I didn't understand some of the other stuff too well. But thank you for that. Okay, so let's go back to the question of thousands and thousands of years of communism, and none of it ever worked out. How would you address that claim?
Well, first of all, obviously communism did not exist for thousands and thousands of years. I think the best case that you could make that there was a communism before the Christian era, that is approximately 2,000 years ago, would be in the Native Americans. Those individuals in the Native Americas who did not hold slaves and who did not utilize a barter or money system, so that societies weren't founded on the principle of the accumulation of wealth, etc., and ideologies of warfare and discrimination. So in those societies that women, if there were such societies in which women were treated equally with men, and there were no slaves, and there were no money, then you could perhaps make a case. And so then Trump would have to address the thousands and thousands of years history of the Native Americans in the United States, and then he would have to prove that those were not viable economies and systems of development. And of course, obviously that is not the case. When the Native American people, were enslaved and dominated and oppressed, and the land was taken, by the Europeans, were very easily could be identifiable as capitalists at that time, using money, taking land, extracting resources, imperializing, etc. Their territories decreased. One could say that the economies were working until they were destroyed, by the European capitalist invaders and thieves, right?
Okay. So outside of the possibility of considering the means of production and social organization of certain pueblos and tribes and Indian Native American cultures in the Americas. What about in Europe? Has there been communism for thousands of years?
Nine, no. I mean, I would respond to that, with, how about this? Let me see. Even more complex space-time travel communication 4-2, right, Turkey?
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, that is. Isn't it obvious? I mean, no. Communism in Europe, perhaps began in the very earliest that you could trace any kind of European idea of communism would be perhaps the Waldensians or the Hutterites. I think the Waldensians, that's a 12th century AD, phenomenon. And I suppose, if you really wanted to push it further back and push it into classical history, then you could start with early Christians, right? And you could say that the apostles and the early organization of this Christian mission, right, that was against empire, against the Romans, against imperialism, that promoted ideas of justice, all of that stuff that this man, I don't believe in religion, so to me, it's not the Son of God, but this man, whether he was imaginary or whether he was real, he had some, pretty good things to say, especially that part when he goes to the mountain, and then he preaches a sermon on the mountain, and there's all that stuff, and he tells you about not hoarding money, and being for the poor, and all this, and sharing all your stuff, and then he gives them he take the bread and give them a whole bunch of bread, and give them a whole bunch of wine, and they share everything, and go around and teach and good stuff like that.
Yeah. So you're talking about the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, right?
Yeah. I'm Christianity isn't really my specialty. I have. Frederick and I wrote in the manifesto. We said, religion is the opiate of the masses, and you know, I still believe that, but to some extent, this was before, you know, the history of the United States, and we didn't have the Black Baptist Church back in those days, and so I didn't really, we didn't, Fred and I, we didn't have the opportunity to see the way that you know, certain I would say ideological promotions of the Christian ideas, you know, could become, you know, a tool and a means of fighting and struggling against the forces of oppression. So we didn't, as I say, we didn't have in my day, you know, the American Black Baptist Church, and we didn't have like this kind of struggle. We didn't. There was no Martin Luther King and you know, stuff like that. So you know, we may have recontextualized, you know, the generalization in a different way. You know, had we the foresight, you know, of history, you know, that came after us. But in any case, no, I as you say, I'm not a scholar of the Christian gospel, but I know a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so some of the stuff you're quoting is from the Beatitudes, and you're not the only one, Mr. Marx, that has pointed out, you know, that some communist ideas that are you say intuit or intuit, whatever, like, you know, early formations of them, they're right in the Christian gospel, especially the Beatitudes, right? That leads to all those Anabaptist movements.
Yeah. And then I was gonna say, like, that's where some of this stuff comes in with the Valencians and the Hutterites and the Amish people, and then you got the Shakers, and you got the Quakers, and you got, you know, the Bakers and the Wakers. No, I'm just kidding. But in any case, you got a lot of these Anabaptists, and they, you know, they live in these you know, communities. They share their things. They don't have things like insurance. They take care of one another. You know, they tend to have, you know, tight-knit communities. You know, they preach against slavery and the ownership of human beings. Some of the, you know, one area that I would say that is not fully communist is in these communities, because they tend to be traditional. You know, there's not equal rights for the women and for the men, and then so that can never really be, you know, communism when there's a gender hierarchy and a you know, distribution of power, you know, in any dimension, right? Any dimension of identity, or what now you people are calling positionality, right? So, you know, other than that, but you can make a claim that, you know, in some of these communities that there was, you know, some idea of communist or socialist, you know, community engagement and economic means, you know, prior to what, you know, Fred and I and some of the other anarchists and folks were doing in the 1800s. Yeah. But basically, you know, modern communism, and certainly the way that this Donald J. is using the word communism, you know, this idea of communism, you know, began in my time, and so it's not thousands of years old. It's not even hundreds of years old. It's a couple of hundred years old is all it is, you know, and so I'm not sure where these thousands and thousands of years are coming from, you know.
And you're sure you're not a caveman?
No, I'm not a caveman. This beard, this look was very popular in my day, and I understand that among some of the Trumpy crowd, it's becoming popular again. I don't know if they know that they look like me, Karl Marx, but I've seen some of these guys that live in the woods and stuff, and they think they're survivalists, and they do resemble me to some extent.
All right, okay, so you cleared some of that stuff up. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about any of this stuff? Oh, I have a question. Okay, so.
What is the question?
Yeah, okay, so Miss Marx, if you go to the Wikipedia site that is called communism, right? It says that according to Richard Pipes, I guess he's a historian or a philosopher, it says this, and I'm going to quote it, I'm going to go ahead and quote it, okay? According to Richard Pipes, the idea of a classless, egalitarian society first emerged in ancient Greece. Since the 20th century, ancient Rome has been examined in this context, as well as thinkers such as Aristotle, Cicero, Demosthenes, Plato, and Tacitus. Right, can you respond to this?
Well, I guess, once again, I have to, start with even more, as you say, even more complex BLE question, and that's the one I wanted to reference before. BLE question, space-time travel communication coordinate. Did I say BLE question when I meant space-time travel communication coordinate? Even more complex space-time travel communication coordinate number 4-2, right? Which is the reference, isn't it obvious? No, not at all. For one thing, okay, there was an idea of democracy in Greece, but the idea always depended upon a number of hierarchical organizations of humanity. And one was gendered, right? Women were not allowed to vote. No, women were not allowed to vote. This was a limited democracy in which women were not allowed to vote. There was no equality there. And they owned slaves, right? And in large part, after the colonization of an imperialization of Greece by the Macedonians, the two Philips and Alexander, then not only was there slavery and limited democracy, but also imperialism of Greek ideals across the Middle East and Southern Europe and Africa, etc., etc. The colonization of Egypt. By the time you get to Julius Caesar, and all that, Egypt had been colonized by the Greeks. This is what is known as the period of this is the Hellenistic era, which comes after the Hellenic era, in which Greeks were Greeks. But now you could be Egyptian and you would be considered Greek because you had been colonized by the Greeks, right? Before this, under Hellenism, you had to be a Greek, and you were a Greek because you came from Greece. Now you could be a Greek because you had been colonized by the Greeks through the Philips and Alexander. But in any case, Greece never had an idea of communism, and so let's throw all the Greeks out, Plato and Aristotle, and plus that, Aristotle was a proponent of the philosopher king, being a king is diametrically opposed to communism. And then you have who was the other referent there? Demosthenes. Demosthenes was not a communist. He was a wealthy landowner, and he was a lawyer, and you know, you could say, well, he didn't like the Phillips, you know, but being anti-Macedonian and not liking the fact that the Macedonians like overtook the country is not exactly being communist. You know, he was you know, perhaps, you know, anti-imperialist in principle, but didn't make him a communist. You know, and in fact, you know, money was one of the main issues under which, you know, he argued with the Phillips. And so, yeah, no. And of course, none of the Romans, you know, were communists. The best you could say was that there were some Roman Republicans who were against having an emperor. I mean, that is the very best you could say, that they wished Rome to be a republic. But being a republic and operating under a system of communism is quite different. And in fact, once again, in Rome, women did not have equal rights. Women were property. The patriarch owned the children. He could do with them what they wanted. A patriarch could divorce his wife and abandon her. There were no laws favoring women. There was institutions of slavery, and of course there were individuals who were used as human sacrifice, basically in the arenas, as Donald Trump is doing today. And don't get me into all of that.
Okay. So why would Richard Pipes, this guy put up there on the site, say this stuff if it's just not true?
Well, my understanding is the following: this Mr. Pipes is in fact he's not a scholar or historian or a philosopher at all. He's some kind of puppet, you know, that apparently supported by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, United States, and utilized, you know, to promote these ideas that would allow for U.S. intervention in various types of economies. You know, I understand he was born in Poland, and he was a businessman, a Polish legionnaire, etc., etc., etc. Apparently, he was utilized by the CIA to, you know, I don't know, promote ideologies of imperialism and American interference in the growth and development of economies across the globe.
Wow. Okay, well, so why do you think they put that up there?
Honestly, I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to say. You can look up any of these Greeks or Romans, and you find nothing even close to an idea of communism. As I said, the probably the earliest examples that you can find of communism, and you have to push it, because, like I said, you know, these are ideas of communism before there was such a conceptualization, right? But like they are the beginnings, you know, the premature, you know, origins of such ideas, and these would belong to the peoples of Native America, and perhaps if you push it a little bit, early Christians, you know, before the Romanization of Christianity with the development of the imperial churches, etc., etc. This would be back in the days when they were still feeding the Christians to the lions, in the arena. And so as it is with our history, we've always been fed to lions, and some of those lions are fascists, and some of those lions are lions, but you get the idea.
All right. Okay. Well, that really clears up a lot. And once again, thank you, Ms. Marx, for being with us today, clearing some of that up, clarifying some of those ideas. I didn't understand everything you said, but what you did say, I thought sounded pretty good. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign out. Once again, this is Turkey signing out. Donald J. You know Donald J's been telling you lies for thousands and thousands of years. Don't believe it. Do the research. Find out. Don't buy the bull. Have a good day.